3 weeks ago, I received a phone call from an unknown number at approximately 2 in the morning. Against my better judgment, I answered. At first, there was only static, then a voice quietly whispered, "Would you like to become an influencer?" Now, instinctively, I said no, because throughout human history, nothing good has ever followed that sentence. However, before I could hang up, the voice continued and told me I would receive unlimited fame, financial compensation, and the opportunity to commit acts of extreme violence for a live audience. At this point, I was intrigued. So naturally, 15 minutes later, I found myself signing a legally questionable contract in what appeared to be an abandoned Soviet medical facility, while a man dressed like a children's television mascot repeatedly asked me if I was ready to entertain the masses. And before I could even process what was happening, I was violently abducted, thrown into a van, and then dropped off directly into the world of Luckrot. Luckrot is a game about monetizing human suffering for the entertainment of dopamine-addicted psychopaths. And frankly, after spending 6.5 hours inside this horrific capitalist meat grinder, I can confidently say that it is one of the most spiritually accurate depictions of modern internet streaming culture ever created. Because in Luckrot, your life has exactly 2 measurable values: how many people you've killed and whether chat thinks it's funny. Set in a dystopian future where unemployment has evolved into a televised gladiatorial combat, you play as a financially ruined wage slave who signs away his bodily autonomy in exchange for internet fame and subsidized violence. Now, our objective today is quite simple. We are going to attempt to complete all 5 Steam achievements, which as follows: get 400 pistol kills. No. Wait. Defeat the first boss, collect every single figure hidden throughout this digital psychological evaluation, reach 10,000 viewers, and finally beat the game. In essence, we are attempting to fully complete a game whose core gameplay loop is being publicly degraded by thousands of strangers while committing acts of industrialized mutant slaughter for PayPal donation handouts. So basically Twitch.
Say I ain't got money.
And that's really where Luckrot becomes fascinating, because beneath all the explosions, gore, and mutilated Teletubby hate crimes, this game is very obviously a satire of modern livestream culture. And the horrifying lengths people will go for money, views, and attention. Every mechanic reinforces this. The better you perform, the more subscribers you gain. The more reckless and entertaining you are, the more money viewers throw at you. And if you stop moving for more than 4 seconds, chat immediately turns against you like starving hyenas smelling weakness. The game even sets this tone almost immediately after loading it up, with the cameras following your mouse cursor, giving the impression that all eyes are on you. Which means the game unintentionally takes on the monolithic task of somehow making live streamers appear valuable to society. You are no longer just a man screaming at a webcam while opening loot boxes. Now you're a heavily armed public servant maintaining societal stability through extreme violence. And honestly, I truly believe this is a massive improvement for the industry.
Pick one now, or do I have to pick one for you?
Now traditionally, in roguelikes, the gameplay loop is fairly straightforward. Enter room, kill monsters, acquire funny upgrades, repeat until either the enemies die or your CPU bursts into flames. However, Luckrot adds one very important mechanic: public humiliation. You see, every single second of gameplay is live streamed to an in-game audience whose chat permanently sits on your screen, judging every action like a digital Roman Colosseum full of TikTok addicts. If you miss your shots, they bully you. If you stop moving, they call you washed. If you start doing well, they suddenly pretend they believed in you from the beginning. Nice. In essence, this game has perfectly recreated Twitch chat. And unfortunately, the psychological warfare works, because your subscriber count is directly tied to your power progression. The more entertained people are, the stronger you become through subscriber counts and donations. Which means the optimal strategy is not survival, the optimal strategy is content. This creates some deeply concerning gameplay incentives. For example, why go with what is the optimal choice of gun when you can switch out every time you get a kill, like your very own version of Call of Duty gun game? The audience loves it, praises you as a weapon master, subscriber counts quickly climb up, money starts pouring in, chat starts spamming messages like they actually like you. And if you have a good kill streak going, money starts gushing in as if I just showed my bare feet on camera to all my Twitch chat mods. The moment-to-moment gameplay in Luckrot is complete sensory overload in the best possible way. You're constantly dashing, wall jumping, sliding around corners, detonating crowds of mutants, summoning weapon drones, launching fireballs, and sucking up enough ammunition to supply a small Middle East conflict. At one point, I had 5 combat robots following me around and shooting anything that moved, like I was some kind of schizophrenic tech priest from Warhammer 40k. The combat itself feels surprisingly solid too. Weapons hit hard, movement is fast, everything explodes exactly the way I want it to. And then there's the slot machine. Dear God, the slot machine.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Between rounds, whenever you enter the upgrade hub, the game takes 95% of your earnings in taxes before forcing you to gamble the remaining scraps for upgrades using a sentient machine that verbally mocks you while stealing your money. Which, to be fair, is still less predatory than my fucking government.
Mr. Speaker, I am a gooner.
Shut the fuck up.
This is your only way of getting upgrades for your weapons and buddy bots. And naturally, the entire system is built around gambling addiction and financial despair. It craves your money and insults you every chance it gets.
Fuck you.
Here's how it works. As you massacre mutants for the entertainment of the livestream audience, viewers occasionally throw money at you. You get more the better you perform mass genocide. However, the second you enter this room, the corporation immediately confiscates almost all of it through taxes.
Ugly, loser, poor, and poor.
Leaving you with just enough money to experience hope before violently taking that away too. You then feed your remaining cash directly into this verbally abusive slot machine in exchange for a chance at upgrade capsules. Not guaranteed upgrades, a chance at upgrades. Because this machine does not respect you as a human being. If you get matches, you hit jackpots and walk away with enough capsules to turn your weapons into instruments of mass extinction. Other times, you spend your entire life savings only for the machine to basically laugh in your face while giving you absolutely nothing in return.
Oh, I hate you.
And that's not even the worst outcome. Just to piss on your already blood-covered parade, if you get a match with the horrifying menacing game show's logo, you get a shotgun blast to the face. This game truly does hate you and wants your money. This game is more accurate of Twitch than I ever imagined. Now aesthetically, this game feels like somebody locked a children's television producer inside a collapsing Soviet apartment complex and forced him to design a cyberpunk death sport. Everything here are these cold industrial arenas filled with colourful smiling nightmare creatures waddling towards you with murderous intent. It generally feels like a children's TV network accidentally received unlimited military funding and copious amounts of untested mutating drugs. Talking about drugs, let's quickly brush over all the colourful inbreds we will be slaughtering in today's video, shall we? And I just want to be perfectly clear here. These names are not canon or in any way the vision of what the devs had in mind. I'm just really good at profiling groups of different types of people. Huh? Let's start with the first enemy you'll be dealing with, this thing. Now, officially, I have absolutely no idea what this creature is called, but personally, I call him the Temu Deathclaw. Because this is quite clearly what happens when a corporation attempts to mass-produce super soldiers, using leftover construction equipment and experimental bath salts. Just look at this poor bastard. Bright orange jumpsuit, swimming goggles, rusty industrial arm blades, and the facial expression of a man who's lost his entire pension fund on online blackjack.
I'm actually retarded!
This is not an enemy design, this is a cry for help. Lore-wise, these things used to be regular civilians before the corporation rounded them up and started experimenting on them with what I can only assume was a cocktail of anabolic steroids, ketamine, and industrial pesticides, with just a little dash of fentanyl. After several hours of genetic modification, morally questionable surgery, and having whatever humanity remained inside them chemically pressure washed away, they were eventually repurposed into disposable target practice. Which honestly feels like a fairly believable career path in this economy.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
But the real warning sign of how messed up this world truly is the blood. Because these things do not bleed red, no. They bleed this bright radioactive green sludge that looks less like plasma and more like somebody performed a blood transfusion after blending together 5 liters of Monster Energy, a handful of slugs, and industrial dish soap. At this point, we are no longer dealing with human biology. We are dealing with a sentient government health violation. Honestly, whatever chemical cocktails pumping through their veins probably explains why every single one of them sprints directly at gunfire with complete confidence. This is not courage. This is what happens when the corporation rearranges your brainwaves with glowing antifreeze and unresolved aggression. Now, combat-wise, these guys are the most common enemy in the entire game. They are the first thing you have to kill, and thankfully, they possess roughly the same tactical depth as a modern-day Total War game. Their primary strategy consists almost entirely of sprinting directly at you while wildly swinging their arm blades around like divorced fathers at a Black Friday sale. However, despite their complete lack of self-preservation, these things are actually dangerous in large groups, because when you accidentally corner yourself like an idiot and 8 of these freaks start charging you simultaneously through a cramped hallway while the live stream audience screams for blood, the entire experience begins feeling less like a video game and more like trying to survive a mosh pit in an abandoned Teletubby set. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of energy this game thrives on. The thing I love most about these enemies is how deeply pathetic they are, because despite being surgically transformed into murder creatures for public entertainment, corporations still couldn't even afford to give them proper clothes. I mean, just look at this outfit. This broken man is one step away from clocking into a shift at a Dutch trampoline park. You're telling me the company had enough funding for invasive cybernetic blade implantation, but apparently not enough funding to make them look remotely intimidating? Oh well. Hello, Gerald against his will. How do you feel about having your brain matter be a ceiling decoration? No? Well, that's too bad. And yet somehow, they still perfectly embody the spirit of livestream culture. Loud, aggressive, financially exploited, and willing to sprint directly into certain death if enough strangers are watching. Now, let's talk about the next freak, who I like to call Paralympic Sonic. Get over here! The next enemy type is where the game starts becoming deeply disrespectful toward the concept of human anatomy, because eventually, you will encounter these blue athletic horrors sporadically jumping towards you like a drunk Paralympian. And I need you to really look at this thing for a second. This man has no functioning legs anymore. The corporation fully looked at a human being and decided, you know what this guy needs? To become a weaponized retarded kangaroo. Both legs have been replaced with those curved sprinting blades that personally just look like comically large shoehorns to me, causing every movement animation to look like he's trying to escape an invisible mousetrap. Look, you say I'm wrong, but you can't unsee it now. They look exactly the same. And nothing in the comments will make me change my mind. And somehow, the helmet makes it worse. From one angle, he looks like a methed up Sonic. From the other, he looks like Hal's rival from that one Malcolm in the Middle episode. It is an absolutely catastrophic visual design. Now naturally, when I first encountered these creatures, I assumed they would just awkwardly bounce toward me until I forced them the French kiss some 50 Action Express. Because hidden inside those weird coiled hubba bubba arm growths is grappling claws specifically engineered to rip your entire hairline off. If you still have it, by the way. The second this thing lands a hit, the claw shoots directly onto your forehead, damages you a bit, and then slowly drags you towards them with the same unsettling persistence as Joe Biden approaching a child's shoulder. And the movement slowdown can be extremely awful in the later stages. Not enough to fully stop you, but just enough to make every situation dramatically worse and probably make you clench your butthole a bit. You're trying to dodge incoming attacks, run around hellbent ungodly creations, maybe survive for just another 10 seconds. Meanwhile, this disabled cybernetic crackhead latches onto your cranium and proceeds to slowly reel you in across the floor, licking his lips in absolute glee as his fellow colleagues close in to pound you to a pulp.
No, 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 no! Wait!
Moving on, we have the Gastric Titan, a 12-foot tall biological giant with a mouth where his internal organs should be. The giant itself is horrifying enough already, but then you notice the tiny little man sitting on top of his shoulders, manually steering him around like he's Plankton in that one SpongeBob episode. Which means this isn't technically one monster, it's a two-man operation. Dear God, this place gets more messed up the more I play. Most of his attacks involve violently coughing up radioactive acid projectiles from his stomach mouth, leaving giant puddles of corrosive sludge all over the floor, kinda like the average bloke on a pub crawl in England. And eventually, the entire fight stops becoming combat and starts becoming avoid the glowing cancer liquid. Meanwhile, if you attempt fighting him up close, he immediately boots you in the chest and caves in your ribcage. Just shoot from afar whenever you get the chance. He's slow and hard to miss. Next we have these things. Dear God, I fucking hate these things. Testicle drones are as nightmarish as the name I gave them. These floating pink airborne pricks spend the entire fight hovering around the map shooting at you. Individually, they're manageable, but the second an entire swarm appears, the game immediately turns into surviving a coordinated terrorist attack conducted by flying genitalia. And because they never stop moving, buzzing, shooting, or making this god-awful sound, every encounter with them feels like the developers personally resent your existence. Absolute kill on-sight enemy. No hesitation, no mercy. If I see one of those floating toward me, I suddenly understand why birds scare airport engineers. Now Now, seeing as we're talking about annoying as fuck balls, we might as well introduce you to the other one, who I like to call the Pipe Bomb Pac-Man. This tiny yellow genetic hate crime is essentially what happened if Pac-Man developed severe anger issues, read an ISIS introduction leaflet, and became legally classified as an IED. It has no arms, no eyes, no organs, no visible purpose in life whatsoever besides sprinting directly towards you at full speed before violently detonating like a T-Mu vape charger. And because they're small, fast, and usually hiding behind actual dangerous enemies, you never notice them until one suddenly waddles around a corner and explodes directly waist height and blows your dick off. Which means every encounter of these things feels like getting mugged by a sentient tennis ball filled with C4. And of course, the more there are, the worse it is for you, just like his flying nutsack cousins. Honestly, the design philosophy here appears to have been, what if anxiety had legs and became a terrorist? Now, this one right here, this one genuinely upsets me. I call this thing the catfish sniper, because from a distance you think, alright, hear me out. And then the closer you get, the more you begin realizing this is not an attractive woman. This is a 68-year-old man in a skin-tight bodysuit standing on drywall screws with a rifle grafted directly onto his arm. Combat-wise, these things stay far away from you and take pot shots from across the map with terrifying accuracy sometimes. And individually, they're manageable. But the second multiple of them spawn inside an open room with no cover, the game immediately transforms into surviving the JFK assassination from several different angles simultaneously. Because from a distance, this thing has an arse capable of rivaling Kim Kardashian's entire economic output. The developers absolutely knew what they were doing here. They keep these things far away from you intentionally, so your brain only registers the curves, the posture, and the absolute dump truck attached to this creature. And then the second you finally get close enough to fight one properly, you suddenly realize you've been sexually confused by what is essentially a pensioner on stilts with fake tits.
God damn.
And lastly, we have this fella, the Ugandan Nippler. There's honestly not much to say here other than I'm fairly certain they captured a rare Ugandan knuckles out in the wild, injected him with industrial grade steroids and gorilla DNA, then allowed Meat Canyon to personally oversee the nipple department. He's basically a knuckle dragger, because the second it spots you, this red mutant immediately drops onto all fours and starts charging around the arena like a gorilla that just escaped the CIA laboratory. And every so often it suddenly launches itself fist first directly towards you like a biological freight train. And that concludes Luckrot's mutant tour through the biological consequences of unrestricted corporate funding and human suffering. Needless to say, the combat gets very chaotic very quickly. Now, to be clear, the game isn't perfect. The HUD looks like a military cockpit designed by a schizophrenic accountant. Some runs can get a little repetitive, especially in the early stages, and once your build starts scaling into orbit, the difficulty curve begins collapsing harder than the average NFT startup. But for $5, Luckrot feels like somebody weaponized livestream culture, internet addiction, gambling psychology, and arena shooters into one deeply concerning digital experiment. And against all odds, it's kind of really fun. So with that said, it's now time for us to descend headfirst into this monetized psychological collapse society, acquire every achievement, survive the world's most sadistic livestream audience, and eventually fight our way out of this corporate death maze by violently dismantling the very company responsible for creating it in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin Luckrot. Now, before we can begin harvesting achievements like some kind of psychotic digital bounty hunter, we first need to understand how this game actually works. The tutorial does a surprisingly decent job explaining things, considering the entire setting feels like it was designed by a committee of cocaine addicts locked in a nuclear bunker. Movement is fast, combat is aggressive, and every room feels like a brutal as concrete death maze and absolutely no regard for human life. Your primary objective is to survive increasingly difficult arenas while maintaining enough viewer engagement to stop chat from collectively deciding that your death would probably be more funnier than your success, which, to be fair, is also how most live streaming careers operate. Our very first run went about as well as expected. I survived a few rooms, learned some mechanics, shot several malformed Sesame Street creatures directly in the face, and then roughly a few rooms later, I learned an important lesson. You should probably not try punching a live landmine while multiple sex-change pensioners actively turning you into Swiss cheese. A very strong opening. However, after a few more runs, I slowly began understanding the core gameplay loop: movement, positioning, aggression, guns, and most importantly, which special abilities were actually useful and which ones belonged in the toilet. After reaching each sub-goal, you are given 3 options in the reward screen. Sometimes these give specials to choose from, with a max of 2 per run. Let's start with the warp ability. That lets you sort of blink or teleport forward in whatever direction you're aiming. Now, theoretically, that sounds incredible. In practice, it mostly allowed me to aggressively reposition myself 3 feet closer to whatever was trying to kill me. After several runs of experimentation, I eventually came to the conclusion that the phase ability was complete dog shit. I wouldn't recommend it. And the grapple hook somehow managed to be even worse. I generally do not understand why this thing exists. The maps are already designed around absurd movement speed, bunny hopping, and stacking jump and speed upgrades until your character moves like a methamphetamine-fueled grasshopper. So introducing a slow, awkward grapple hook into the equation feels like giving someone a shopping cart during a Formula 1 race. Every single time I used it, I immediately regretted it. Don't get it. The shield ability at least has some practical use. Unfortunately, the game itself openly mocks you for taking it by calling you a huge fucking pussy. And honestly, that's kind of fair, and probably the least cruel thing this company does to you. The game later added a wall jumping one, which is actually really good at avoiding snipers. But after enough experimentation, I discovered the one universal truth governing all life inside Luckrot. Violence solves everything. Specifically, dual wielding and fireballs. This combination was so catastrophically effective that it immediately became my entire personality. Why dodge attacks when you can simply create enough explosions to erase the concept of enemy positioning altogether? There's also the death penalty ability, which essentially gives you the ability to flip people off before instantly killing them. I gotta be honest, I don't even know if I was even using this thing right. Either I was too far away for this thing to kill anything, or my bullets just killed them faster than for it to kick in. Or maybe I'm just retarded from the excessive blunt force trauma I've endured so far here. Either way, I decided to ditch that too. But funny animation, 8 out of 10. There's also the push ability if you want to roleplay as a Jedi, and a fairly new one, Rate of Fire, which just makes all of your guns big cracked up Uzis. Soon enough, we reached the first boss. Now, when I say boss, you might be imagining some horrifying cybernetic monstrosity or genetically modified super soldier. No, instead, the first major enemy in this game attacks you with weaponized semen. This immediately elevated Luckrot from fun indie roguelike to criminal psychological experiment, because the boss itself is literally just this gigantic white ball on a wheel that violently rolls around the arena while several men in orange gimp suits are strapped directly onto it with industrial suction pumps attached to their crotches. And yes, those pumps are exactly what you think they are. The machine then proceeds to fire massive glowing white projectiles all over the map, while identical orange-suited people are strapped to the surrounding walls like this facility is somehow powered entirely by human suffering and gooning. At that point, I stopped asking questions and just started shooting. We killed them first try, and immediately in the first room of phase 2, got an arm blade sliced right between our butt cheeks. If that was the first boss, then I just had to keep going. Still, every failed run slowly taught me more about the game. The cannon projectile attack can pass through walls. I love shooting the shotguns not simultaneously, so I have my very own makeshift AA-12. And that my hatred for these flying radish testicles is justified every single time. The sniper rifle absolutely shreds bosses, and dual wielding them together was basically the game handing me a delete button. Eventually, I discovered my preferred strategy. Minimal effort, maximum destruction. Exactly how I like committing mass genocide. And honestly, the game's upgrade system started becoming weirdly philosophical after a while, because every time you die, you lose upgrade levels for everything times 2. Not all of them, if you upgraded enough, but enough to make every death feel like the Luckrot executives are laughing their asses off from the safety of their tower above the arena. Luckrot is deeply committed to reminding you that progress is temporary, and suffering is eternal, which again makes it one of the most accurate depictions of internet content creation culture ever created. Let's try again. Drone builds, dual pistols, katana spam, sniper abuse, AK dual wielding, fireball spam, die, 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 die by semen, dual shotguns, scorpions, AUG, die so bad the last thing you see in chat is some guy telling you their grandma would do better.
Oh, this fucking shit.
Try again. Get introduced to 2 new characters. This guy gives you challenges to earn either more viewers or more money, and this guy somehow escaped to not be a ravenous killing machine, which only lore dumps onto you more and more how fucked up this game's universe truly is. Let's keep going. At one point, I had 5 combat drones following me around, mass murdering entire rooms of mutants into green bloody sludge, and then eventually, after many runs, we reached the second boss. Dear God, the Stream Queen.
Oh, the camera's on.
A horrifyingly fusion of parasocial manipulation, internet celebrity culture, Slanesh worship, and the average Twitch streamer in the just chatting category. Surrounded at all times by an army of loyal, indestructible simp gimps who throw themselves in front of bullets to protect her, which honestly makes her one of the most realistic bosses in streaming history. The fight itself was complete chaos. Purple lightning spams, absolute sensory overload, and the mildly confusing sensation of trying to kill the very thing giving you a semi. After enough sniper abuse and enough dual-wielding degeneracy, we finally brought her down, and with that, we were on to Act 3. This is where the game transforms from challenging indie shooter into militarized panic attack. Explosive barrels everywhere, massive enemy waves, huge arenas, crowds cheering from above while you massacre mutants for ad revenue and sub counts. At this point, Luckrot stops pretending to be subtle. This game is openly screaming directly into your face, entertain them or die. Which I'm going to be honest, the pressure started getting to me, because every failed run became increasingly painful, especially once I discovered that quitting the game wipes your active run progress entirely. Not partially, entirely. Luckrot does not respect your time. Luckrot views your free time as a consumable resource to be harvested for content. It is less a video game and more an abusive contractual relationship. Damn, they really are being as accurate as Twitch, aren't they? Still, we pushed onward. Unlocking figures, learning enemy patterns, we even unlocked Pistol Beast. Eventually, after many attempts, we learned a truly filthy opening strategy when you try again. Whenever possible, take a gun immediately from the upgrade menu. Doesn't matter which gun, take it, because the first room almost always drops multiple ammo crates. This effectively allowed me to transform basic starter weapons into instruments of mass destruction before the game even had time to emotionally prepare itself for me ammo dumping everything in the next room. And after dozens upon dozens of failed attempts, something changed. The runs started becoming cleaner, longer, more controlled, and just when I thought I was going insane and doubting myself if my kills were even counted or not, the game updated while I went for a shit fixing some things. Mission tracking finally got patched. Enemy sounds improved. Now I can hear gargled breathing in any direction, even when in the pause menu. Thank you, devs, for the non-consensual tinnitus, by the way. Purple sniper enemies finally got nerfed after spending several hours operating like government-funded assassins with aimbot, and slowly, the dream became possible. Then came the run, you know the one. Every roguelike player eventually experiences a run where the stars align and suddenly the game stops feeling impossible. This was that run. We killed more mutant freaks, killed boss 1 and 2, and finally reached 10,000 views. Big leagues completed, 2 more achievements to go. The combat clicked, everything started flowing together beautifully. Ironically, despite spending most of the game obsessively searching for dual wielding, the final successful run never gave it to me.
I hate it here. I want to come home.
At this point, I became fully convinced the game itself hated me personally. I'd like to say I adapted, but in reality, I was just being stubborn and hoping for a miracle. Health, speed, mobility, drone spam galore, and fireballs. That's all I had going for me this run, like a Fire Mario that overdosed on Adderall. After several hours of slaughtering mutated mongoloids, entertaining the masses of extreme murder, and getting the average British cancel tax bill experience, we finally reached to boss 3, which turns out to be some obese livestream addict fused directly into a flying death saucer while wearing a VR set and surrounded by an audience cheering him on like he's the second coming of Christ. The arena itself is literally built like a Twitch convention posted inside a military testing facility. You've got giant screens calling this guy the GOAT while he floats around firing lasers, bombs, and giant spinning blades at you like a weaponized mobility scooter from the future. And somehow, the crowd makes the whole thing worse, because throughout the fight, random audience members will literally throw themselves into the arena just to protect him. Not trained guards, not soldiers, just loyal fans willingly sacrificing themselves for their favorite streamer like this is some kind of heavily armed parasocial suicide cult, which honestly is probably the most realistic satire in the entire game. But eventually, we killed him too, and we're on to the final act. After killing all the bosses, the game still wasn't done with me, because immediately afterward, the corporate executives running this entire Bloodsport decided they no longer wanted me alive, which is probably the most realistic depiction of corporate management I have ever seen. Thankfully, the mysterious orange man I had been repeatedly speaking to throughout the game finally intervened by sacrificing himself to save me. A heroic sacrifice briefly ruined by the fact he proceeded to collapse and ragdolled like a Victorian orphan discovering what the common cold was. Truly a hero. Now, all that remained was the final act, and after hours of suffering, dozens of failed runs, and enough livestream humiliation to permanently damage the human spirit, we were ready to kill anyone that was in our way, which proceeded to be highly trained mutants with fully automatic laser guns with barely no unusual amputations or modifications. If I wasn't trying to escape with my life, I'd probably pitch a business idea Luckrot would have a hard time ignoring for a chance at some of those tax earnings. Anyway, we killed them all, even their giant cousins, and got to the exec office and slaughtered them all too. And then we did it. After all that suffering, dozens of failed runs, being psychologically abused by livestream chat, fighting weaponized sperm tanks, sniper sex-changed pensioners, airborne testicles, sex pests, steroid-enhanced Uganda knuckles and more, we finally escaped. Luckrot Corp has collapsed, the executives are all dead, the audience got their final show, and I'm all out of money all over again. That was Luckrot. Thank you for this month's patrons for supporting the channel, and finally, thank you for watching.